You'd be hard-pressed to find a person who plays video games who doesn't know the name Gran Turismo. Created by Sony's first-party studio, Polyphony Digital, in 1997, Gran Turismo is a fully featured racing game that pushed the boundaries of the genre with insanely detailed cars and physics. Gran Turismo's release would help cement Sony's position as the market leader by selling over 10 million copies, becoming one of the absolute biggest draws on the system. So, after a success like that, of course they'd rush a sequel into development, which would arrive less than 2 years later. But strangely, nestled right in between the release of Gran Turismo 1 and 2 is a game that not a lot of people know about. A game that is about as far from the real-world details presented in GT, instead placing us in control of a powerful mechanized war machine called Omega Boost. The best way that I can describe Omega Boost is by calling it sort of a hybrid free-roaming and rail shooter. Now, this is right up my alley because rail shooters are possibly my favorite genre. But calling it free-roaming is actually kind of debatable because there's actually no map to speak of. It's just a wide open area of repeating ground textures with no edges. It just goes on forever. The story is quite a bit more complex than you'd expect from something like this. Well, complex is probably stretching it, but it's more interesting than your typical alien invasion that the stories for these kind of games usually bring. In the 1940s, a flaw in the first ever artificial intelligence created a sentient AI called AlphaCore, which was hidden away, learning, for hundreds of years. Eventually, it exposes itself and takes control of all machines and wages war on humans. In an effort to prevent their extinction, the humans devise a way to travel back in time and repair the flaw, effectively wiping out the AlphaCore before it actually has a chance to exist. It's kind of like a reverse Terminator plot. The setup is explained with an awesome live-action sequence as you boot the game, showing the pilot suiting up and launching on his mission.
Target 1946. ENIAC, the first artificial intelligence. The enemy has already activated the time shaft. Your mission is to prevent the AlphaCore from causing a historical alteration.
So, you want to know the way to my heart? Put a live action segment in your game. While these were on their way out by 1999, Omega Boost gives us amazing FMV and CG cutscenes throughout, which automatically earn it big points in my book.
Hey man, did you pack extra socks?
Yeah, and the family Christmas picture.
The storyline of Omega Boost takes place over the course of 9 zones, where you have to defeat these waves of enemies as quickly as you can. These waves are usually mixed up with a couple of mini-bosses to spice up the action. Your mech has 2 main methods of attack, with the first being a rapid-fire burst of bullets that are super effective on smaller enemies, and the other is a Panzer Dragoon-style lock-on attack that fires several energy missiles. At first, it'll feel a bit chaotic with enemies flying everywhere, but the key to standing a chance is to keep your eye on this little pointer in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, which shows where the nearest enemy is. Using the scan function, which is activated with a quick press of the L1 button, you'll instantly turn towards them. If you continue to hold down the button, the camera will follow the enemy from your perspective, allowing you to look for openings and plan your attacks. This move is integral to your success, with the downside to it being that you're probably going to be holding down this button for about 98% of the game. Not a problem at first, but my hand really started to cramp up after a while. Another key move is your speed dash, which allows you to move towards enemies or dodge their attacks quickly. This is essential when going for a faster completion time, but to be honest, I barely use this, at least when playing on normal. Finally, starting with stage 3, each enemy you kill will build your Viper boost, which is an ultimate attack that does heavy damage when activated. As typical for these kind of things, it's best to use it in a pinch or on a boss. Since Omega Boost arrived fairly late in the generation, it's a decent looking game, if a bit sparse at times. Some levels look way better than others, such as this huge space battle, and bosses are occasionally impressive due to their large size. The coolest part of all this is that the game rarely, if ever, dips below 60 frames per second, which helps the action feel super quick and relentless. The soundtrack, on the other hand, is bland in a very unobtrusive way. Other than the fairly generic licensed 90s metal that plays over the intro, title screen, and ending, the rest of the music doesn't really stand out all that much because it ends up being drowned out by the sound of gunfire and explosions. Omega Boost is a shooter that feels like it was groomed perfectly for speedrunning. I had a fairly difficult time with it at first, but I was able to finish it in about 6 or 7 attempts. If you're looking for more after finishing the story, there are some cool bonus challenges to unlock for each zone. After Omega Boost, Polyphony Digital has stuck to their bread and butter ever since. Now, I can't say I blame them with how popular Gran Turismo is, not to mention how long each game takes to create. But I do wonder if they'll ever branch out and try other genres ever again, because I'd love to see what they do with an Omega Boost style game nowadays, especially on more powerful hardware.